What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite YouTubers, and that would be Doug DeMuro, famous for the quirks and features videos that he does on a lot of vehicle reviews over the years. And I love Doug. He's such a regular guy, got a lot of really neat cars that he's owned over the years, especially that Ford GT. But he put out a video talking about financing, and he thought that most people should finance their vehicles, and he kind of gave a case for why. Now, admittedly, myself, I am pretty debt averse. I have 0 car payments. I have only ever had 1 car payment, but I actually haven't owned a lot of vehicles either. I own the same truck when I bought when I was 17, and I'm now 30, and I have my Mustang outside that I've wanted for a long time, and so that's the only 2 vehicles I own at the moment, and I only ever had one other one, which was my daily driver 2015 Ford Taurus, which I sold in order to get the Mustang. It was time. It's what I wanted to do. So I am not into car payments personally. I do not have any. It's something that I definitely prefer to minimize because I think it's just this constant money, every month you're paying. And quite frankly, the average car loan is up near $600 a month now, which is a lot of money for most people. If you're making, $50,000 a year, that's going to eat up quite a bit between that and your housing, let alone insurance, fuels, and all that other sort of stuff. So car payments have become a very large portion of our life and just the society we live in. They've gone from like a 36-month loan, and then I remember when I was younger, I was born in 91, so I've seen a lot of this. It was a lot to see a 60-month loan, and now it's nothing to have 72 and 84. So, it's changed a lot in just the past decade, and it really speaks to how expensive vehicles have become, and in my opinion, how much people have been overextending themselves in not just vehicles, but most purchases in general. Oh, I love Doug, and Doug makes a lot of good points. He is kind of like the voice of reason, I think, in the car world on YouTube. He runs kind of a tight ship from what I can see, and he seems to make a lot of very good financial decisions. He's not over the top. He talks about not buying a lot of crazy cars like a lot of people, and he's done his Cars and Bids website, which seems to be doing well, and his whole point was he wants to have a career beyond YouTube at some point, because, as he says, very reasonably as well, not everything lasts forever. And so he is definitely someone that I do admire and appreciate his input. And so when I saw this video on why he thinks that most people should finance their vehicles, I wanted to go in with an open mind, even though I'm more debt averse. And his case was basically just kind of dumbing and oversimplifying this. He was basically saying that you can make more money right now in other investments, and why tie up X amount of money in a lump sum going off to what is a depreciating asset. Vehicles are not investments other than a select few. Just if you call your vehicle an investment, that is incorrect. It is a depreciating asset. They go down in value. And so that's what his point was. He goes, why would you want to tie up 50 grand in that when you could put some down, finance that for such a low percentage rate? He used the example of, I think, 199, which was actually the interest rate I had on the Taurus years ago, and then put the rest in some sort of investment. And in my opinion, you want to have it be readily accessible. So whether that's a money market account or something like that, you really want to be careful about being too aggressive and losing your money. The other thing that he said was that he felt that if it allowed financing, if that was the difference between having an older car, so he used the example of like a 90s Honda, which is not the most safest vehicle just because most vehicles have come so far since the early to mid 2000s in technology. He was basically saying, if that's the difference between you getting something and something much safer, then it makes a lot of financial sense. But he also said that he didn't feel that people should be saying, I make 50 grand and I'm gonna buy a $50,000 or $60,000 vehicle. He's not saying that, and that's what I appreciate. He's not saying using financing as a way to overextend yourself. He's saying use it instead of paying cash for the vehicle. Take some of that, put it down towards it, and then invest the rest in some other way so that you're making more in your money. And in a lot of ways, it's hard to poke holes in that logic. He is correct. And I will say, if my YouTube channel does go somewhere, I would love it to in the coming years as I kind of grow and kind of show you what I'm all about here. it would be really cool to have a vehicle that I purchased as a business expense. And say I've talked about the Ford Maverick. That would be a wonderful daily driver for me, especially in the coming years when I go to I'd love to do a coyote swap on my F-150, and I want to restore a lot of this, do a lot of work, and the truck's going to be down. And for my life, I need something with a bed because I have hobbies like camping and all this other house stuff that I'm eventually going to have, that I'm going to need to be able to do stuff, and I want to be able to work and take my time on my truck. So it would be really cool if YouTube was making decent money, you never know, to be able to finance, something like a Maverick, and it would be really, really neat. I also think that someone like myself, you want to make sure you have the money for the vehicle too. And that was something he was really trying to get at is, if you had the money to pay for it outright or very close without draining your account, right? Yeah, I can see the case for financing it, because if the money is available and something happened and you really needed to get out of that monthly payment, pay the vehicle off. You could do that. So I do agree with it in that sense. And that's the way a lot of businesses will work is, some businesses keep a lot of cash on hand and they would rather finance something, go through that whole depreciation cycle, and then have their money work for them in other ways. So I do kind of agree with that. But I will say on the flip side, it's kind of nice not having loans. I mean, it's a hell of a feeling. I had student loans. I paid them off in 3 years. I mean, that was, and it wasn't a tiny bit of money either. I mean, it was a few tens of thousands. So, I prefer not having payments. But I think the more money you have available, if you really skyrocket your income and you are good about saving, I think I am, yeah, I would consider financing a new vehicle. If it got to that point, and I'm just using the Maverick as an example, I would consider financing it if I had, an income source that was far and above it, it was comfortable for me to pile up money, then yes, I would do that, because it does make sense when you can have more of a return on your money, because I'm the type of person that would actually do that. The thing that I see is a lot of people don't. They use I can invest my money, but then they're not the ones that invest the money. They just buy more crap. So, it's kind of one of those things where it's hard to make that blanket statement of you should do this because you can do this with your money. Because the fact of the matter is most people don't do that. And when, again, the average car payment in the United States is, I think it's almost $600 now. That's a shit ton of money. And I'm sorry, that talks about how excessive people are buying vehicles. They're putting very little down, they're overextending themselves, and I would suspect most people's cars are near as much as 1 year of salary. That is insane to me, but again, that's the world we're living in right now. So in some ways I agree with Doug. I think that there is a time and a place, and for some people it can make sense to finance. But on the other hand, I think that with how debt burdened our country is, and businesses are debt burdened, and I think that's a whole nother thing which I'm not going to go into, but I see something happening in the coming decades where there's going to be a big collapse of some sorts because of the debt. When you owe someone money, you are always in debt to them. It is another bill you need to worry about. And with no loans, no debt, you are much more relaxed because you don't have, someone breathing down your neck that you have to write a check to every month. So, I don't know. That's just my thoughts. I can see the benefits to his video. In the right situation, like I said, I would do the same. But for a lot of people, it's a really tough one. And the case that I would say is, if you are financing, please don't be excessive. The average new vehicle is somewhere in like 35,000. That's a lot of money, but you also have to weigh the cost of used, because used can be almost as much as new right now. And I know we're in a crazy time, but that's one of the biggest issues with trucks is they cost, with 80,000 miles, they cost as much as a new one. So, again, I can kind of understand why some people would jump to a new vehicle and finance it, and it's kind of hard to poke holes in it, because why are you going to buy a 15-year-old truck for 15 grand? That's not a made-up number either. You can see them all day long for those kinds of numbers. So, again, it can be, I just don't like blanket statements, and I didn't think Doug made one, but that's what I mean. there's a time and a place to do loans and pay cash, and depends on the person and your money habits. So what do you think? Are you someone that believes in financing your loans? Or would you rather, kind of like me right now, rather pay cash, and maybe under the right circumstances, like a business or whatever, you'd end up with a loan? Let me know down below, guys. I always appreciate everyone watching. Feel free to hit the like button. It really helps me out. I'm telling you, this helps me, and I've seen a pretty big growth on the channel the past few weeks here. And I always appreciate everyone who subscribes. Really appreciate it, guys. So for now, that's it. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll talk to you in the next one. Take care.